The city was drowning in cold, and so was his hope. Rain fell in sheets, turning every puddle into a mirror of failure. Ethan Cole stood on the corner clutching a worn-out folder, his last resume, his last chance. He had no umbrella, no savings, and no reason left to believe life would turn. But in the next 5 minutes, his act of kindness would change everything he'd ever known. It was 8:03 a.m. on Madison Avenue. New York's glass towers shimmered under the morning drizzle. Office workers hurried past in sleek coats and expensive shoes, too busy to notice the trembling old woman standing at the curb. She was tiny, hunched beneath a broken umbrella, clutching a paper bag that was already melting from the rain. Ethan noticed her because she didn't move. Traffic lights changed twice, and she still stood there, eyes uncertain, fingers trembling. The world streamed around her like she didn't exist. He sighed, glancing down at his folder. Job interview, Aurora Tech, 9 a.m. He couldn't afford to be late again. But something about the woman, her frailty, the confusion in her eyes, pulled him back from the crossing. "Ma'am, are you okay?" he asked, stepping closer. The old woman looked up, startled. Oh dear, I'm fine, just these cars. I can't see very well." He smiled faintly. "It's okay, I've got you." He offered his arm, letting her grip his sleeve. The traffic paused. He guided her slowly, shielding her with his jacket as buses hissed and tires splashed cold water across their shoes. Halfway across, a horn blared. Ethan instinctively pulled her closer, his body shielding hers. A black car screeched to a halt, inches from them, the driver yelling curses through the window. The woman flinched, but Ethan just shook his head. "Ignore him. You're safe." When they reached the other side, she turned to him, face pale, but eyes warm. "Thank you, young man. You didn't have to stop." He smiled. "Sometimes you just have to, ma'am." Her fingers brushed his arm, cold, delicate. "What's your name?" "Ethan. Ethan Cole." She nodded slowly. "You remind me of someone I used to know." He chuckled awkwardly, then checked his watch. 8:41 a.m. Panic jolted through him. "I'm sorry, I have to go. I'm late for an interview." The old woman smiled knowingly. "Then I won't keep you. But remember this, Ethan Cole. Kindness travels faster than ambition." He didn't understand what she meant. He just nodded, gave a quick wave, and ran down the street toward the Aurora Tech Tower. As he disappeared into the rain, the old woman stood silently, the traffic light blinking red against her face. She turned slightly, revealing a small silver badge pinned to her scarf, engraved with the logo of Aurora Tech. By the time Ethan reached the 22nd floor, he was drenched. His shoes squelched with every step, and his jacket was a soaked mess. The receptionist raised an eyebrow, but handed him a visitor badge. "Mr. Cole, you're late. The interview panel's already inside." He swallowed hard. I know. I'm sorry." Inside the glass-walled room, 3 people sat at a long table. At the head was Mr. Dalton, Aurora's HR director, tall, impatient, with a reputation for eating job seekers alive. "So," Dalton said, not looking up from his tablet, "you're 32, former project designer at Cobalt Systems, laid off last year. Tell me why you think you belong here." Ethan took a deep breath. "Because I still believe in building things that make people's lives better." Dalton's eyebrow twitched. "That's cute. But Aurora Tech builds systems, not dreams." "I know," Ethan said, "but systems are only as good as the people who use them. I used to build bridges, literal ones. My designs helped kids get to school, families reach hospitals. I know what it means to create something that matters." The panel exchanged glances. Dalton leaned back. "You've got passion, Cole. But this company needs results, not philosophy. You have 2 minutes. Tell me what you'd change about our user platform." Ethan launched into a rapid explanation, talking about accessibility, user interface, community outreach. He'd spent nights studying Aurora's app system on his old laptop. His ideas were bold, maybe too bold, but honest. Dalton gave a tight smile. "Interesting. We'll be in touch." The phrase stung like rejection. He nodded, thanked them, and left the room with quiet dignity. Outside, the receptionist avoided eye contact, a bad sign. By the time he reached the elevator, his heart was sinking. He pressed the button and whispered to himself, "Guess that's it." But as the doors began to close, a voice called, "Mr. Cole, wait!" He turned. A young assistant ran up, breathless. "Ma'am Winters wants to see you." He blinked. "Who?" "The CEO, right now." His chest tightened. "The CEO?" The assistant nodded. "She asked for you by name." The elevator shot upward to the top floor, his mind racing. The doors opened into a sunlit office that felt more like an art gallery than a workspace. Glass walls, warm wood, and one large window overlooking the city. Behind a sleek desk sat the old woman from the street. She wasn't hunched now. Her posture was regal, her silver hair pinned neatly, eyes sharp and commanding. She smiled when she saw him. "Ethan Cole," she said softly. "You made it." He froze. You? "Yes," she said. "Margaret Winters, founder and CEO of Aurora Tech." His throat dried. I didn't know." "Of course you didn't. And that's why I wanted to meet you." She gestured toward 2 steaming cups of tea. "Sit, please. You're shaking." He sat, still stunned. "I see hundreds of applicants every year. Brilliant minds, impressive resumes, flawless suits. But today I saw something I rarely see anymore. Humanity." Ethan didn't know what to say. He could still see her frail figure at the crossing, her trembling hands clutching his sleeve. Margaret smiled faintly. "You risked yourself for a stranger, with nothing to gain. That tells me more about your character than any degree could." "I just couldn't walk away." "And that," she said, "is exactly the kind of person this company needs." She paused, then slid a folder across the desk. "The position you applied for, project designer? It's yours if you'll take it." He stared, speechless. "You're serious?" "Very. But there's one condition." He braced himself. "I don't hire employees. I invest in people. You'll work directly with me on something new." He swallowed. "What kind of project?" Margaret smiled. "Something that builds bridges again. Not of steel, but of kindness." Outside, the city's rain softened into sunlight. Ethan nodded, slowly, his eyes glistening. Weeks passed, and Ethan's life began to shift. He wasn't just designing software, he was helping Margaret Winters reshape the company's heart. Aurora Tech had been losing its way, drowning in profit charts and investor demands. Margaret wanted to change that. "We built machines that talk to people," she told him, "but we forgot to listen back." Together, they started a new initiative, Aurora Care, a social platform connecting volunteers with underprivileged communities using Aurora's technology. Ethan designed the system, and Margaret gave it her name, the Bridge Project. It launched quietly, but within months, stories began to spread. Of strangers helping strangers, of tech workers mentoring kids, of neighborhoods uniting through shared kindness. At a company event, Margaret stood beside Ethan on stage. "This," she said, her voice trembling, "began because one man stopped in the rain to help an old woman cross a road." The audience turned to him, applauding. Ethan's cheeks burned, but his heart swelled with something he hadn't felt in years: belonging. After the event, Margaret pulled him aside. "You remind me of my late son," she said softly. "He was an engineer, too. Died young, but he believed what you believed, that kindness builds the strongest foundations." Ethan's voice caught. "I'm sorry." She smiled sadly. "Don't be, because today I feel like I met him again." Months rolled into a year. The Bridge Project grew internationally, winning awards for community innovation. Ethan became Aurora's head of design, but for him, the real reward came quietly, in the form of a handwritten letter he received one snowy morning. It was from Margaret. "Dear Ethan, I'm retiring this year. My health is fading, but my heart is full. Aurora Tech will soon be yours to lead, not because you're the most skilled, but because you're the most human. Never forget that the smallest gesture can alter the world's course. With love, Margaret Winters." A week later, she passed peacefully in her sleep. The funeral was small, private. Ethan stood by her grave, rain soaking through his coat, and placed a single white lily on the stone. He whispered, "Thank you for letting me build again." Years later, under Ethan's leadership, Aurora Tech became the world's first company to dedicate a portion of every profit to social outreach.
The story of the crossing, the day an old woman met a young man in the rain, became a part of the company's legend. A bronze plaque stood in the lobby. "Kindness travels faster than ambition," by Margaret Winters. Every morning, employees passed it as they entered, a quiet reminder that success begins with compassion. And somewhere in every new design Ethan approved, in every bridge of code or care he built, lived the echo of that rainy morning, the moment when one simple act turned a stranger into a mentor and kindness into destiny.